Star Wars retrospective. As you probably know, we did episodes 1 through 3 right before the break of the new year, and now here we are going to plow through both the original trilogy and the sequel trilogy, and this is probably going to be the hardest one for us to get through because this is episode 4, A New Hope's retro review, and I cannot imagine a movie that is more special to everybody sitting around this table, much less anybody who might be watching this. So to try to keep us on track, I believe the Queen is going to moderate us today, try to keep us a little more on point. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to her to maybe introduce the panel.
So I will do my best to keep everybody moving along today and try not to chase too many rabbits. So on the panel today...
Oh, porgs. Chase porgs.
We're going to chase porgs. Got it. See? Already. One's gone awry.
That's right. Imagine that. Imagine that.
So today we've got Turtle Gal, we've got Geek Boy, myself, Queen of the Geeks, and IT Geek here. We're going to go through episodes 4, 5, and 6. I would say let's just kick it off by, we're going to start out with episode 4, A New Hope. So, Turtle Gal, if you want to start, just kind of give us your feelings and what you remember about seeing this movie the first time.
Oh gosh, we're going way back in the time machine here.
Yes, we are.
Let's see. You know, it was a really... I saw it in the movie theater. My parents took me, and, you know, we're talking early 80s. What was it? 79?
77.
So I wasn't alive yet.
Yeah, so that's...
Oh, boy!
Were you even conceived yet? I mean, what?
Probably not.
Yeah.
No.
When in 77? When was it released?
Well, okay, so that's an interesting point.
Yeah.
If I can interrupt Turtle Gal just for a
it,
second.
yeah.
Because this is something that I think younger fans might just find just so weird, is that back in the day like this, movies did not have a wide release. They had what they called a staggered release plan. So they would open in major markets like LA, New York, Chicago, and they'd only open like 30 or 40 theaters at a time. And then as the movie either got more popular or as its popularity waned, it would expand slowly out over the country. I don't think I saw Star Wars till about August. I don't think
that's about right.
I think it came to Oklahoma around August, if I remember right, because it seems like I was getting ready to start back to school. Of course, that would have been, September.
I think, being that, I even think I remember seeing it at the Bowman. If those who remember that theater, I think it's laser tag now, or heck, it may be even something else. Other than that.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right, because I think it had gone to the dollar movie by the time we saw it. I mean,
so it would have been later.
Later, yeah, because we had just moved from Texas to Oklahoma, and so I think we saw it at the dollar movies because we, growing up, we'd moved from Texas to Oklahoma, and so yeah, going even back. So I'm having to go way back, this old brain. But it was one of those movies, kind of like the Wrath of Khan, because I did see Wrath of Khan in the movie theater, but I was in Minnesota. My cousins and I had gone to see it, so it's one of those that makes the impression that it was a very epic movie. And, like you're going to say, it was the first non-cartoon Disney movie that we had ever seen, truthfully. And just The New Hope gives you it gives you hope. I mean, it's one of those that just resonates with you, and you compare every movie to it.
Absolutely.
So.
Okay, IT Geek, you want to kick off from there and tell us your memories?
You know what,
back in the day?
I can do that. I'll tell you what, well, first thing a lot of people don't remember is that it was not called A New Hope when it first opened. It was Star Wars. And we might be able to go out on YouTube and find the original crawl, because it didn't have this, it had Star Wars. So one of the first memories I have from seeing Star Wars in the theater, first of all, as we had said, it was the first live-action, non-Disney film I had ever seen in the theater. The second one, of course, being Smokey and the Bandit, so everybody who knows me can say, well, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that really just traveled the spectrum there for you.
Well, and okay, I didn't really have a lot of choice of what movies we went to see at that point.
What, at 7, 8 years old, you didn't get to choose where you got to go?
I didn't have much of a vote.
Right.
I did not have much of a vote, unfortunately. Or fortunately, as my parents would look at it. But, I'll never forget sitting in that theater, because by this time, since it was a staggered release, we had seen all the ads, we'd heard all the hype, and when that fanfare kicked in, and the big Star Wars logo phase, like, okay, wow, and then it's like, oh, I gotta read, and I'll never forget my mom, who, by the way, loathes this kind of stuff, is leaned over, rebel ships from a base, it's all like, okay, but, some of these words I don't even know, But anyway, obviously I got the point,
right.
And then that Star Destroyer came, over camera, and I was never the same again. And even the fact of this, I think maybe some film historian could shout me down, but this was the first time I can remember seeing a planet on screen that didn't break the horizon. Because when you pan out over Tatooine, it's not a planet; it's the horizon there.
Right.
It was just breathtaking.
Yeah,
that's all I gotta say about that.
Okay, IT Geek, your first memories.
First memories. Wow. In kind of referring back to what Geek Boy said, there is the fanfare when you have that utter silence when it's just go a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, and then it's like, BAM! And then I remember I was like, that took me back, but and not in like a scary way. It was just like, wow, okay,
wow.
It's like I'm in something huge here. To me, it was like, okay, I'm here for a show, and what was really kind of cool about it is like I'm trying to. It's going too fast. I can't read it. And so I got some of it and not really sure what the heck that was all supposed to mean. But then you hear the gunfire, the blaster fire, and on the ship, and seeing that horizon, it just was like, I don't know. Here talking about it, I guess really I think that's the first time I'd had a movie kind of really just pull me in and make me go somewhere that wasn't the movie theater. It really affected me in the sense that this is fantastic. This is what my imagination would do to me. It made me go to a different world, a different place. Yeah. So it was just a phenomenal event for me. And it's one that all of us have tried to share with our kids, or our parents shared with us as kids and stuff. And so with that and everything, I know you didn't see it until later, but your mom is a huge fan to the sense that she was cycling VCR tapes when I first met you.
We've had so many copies of all of these movies on every format available. So obviously, being born at the end of 1978, I didn't go see this in the theater. I don't even...
Not that you remember.
I was going to say, well, wait, you probably could have been there.
I guess I could have, but...
In the womb. She was like, pew, 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 pew.
I don't have those same kind of memories seeing it at a theater. My memories of seeing these movies are watching them with my mom at home, and we watched them like over and over and over again. This one I think I liked this one because it's the introduction to the characters. So this one is not necessarily my favorite, but it's where you're getting to know all of these characters that have become so beloved to everyone, and built an entire universe and making bank for Disney, George Lucas, hand over fist. So let's talk a little bit about the characters. In this one, I do hope we're meeting all of the characters for the first time. IT Geek, Geek Boy, do you guys want to kind of go off each other? You guys tend to do pretty well about who's your favorite in this one.
So are we going to have a lightsaber battle over the characters now?
I think like most young kids, I was captivated by the droids. I really was. I thought, what's this all about? And again, it's one of these things that we've kind of talked about. George Lucas borrowed from everything. He borrowed from Wizard of Oz, and he borrowed from Joseph Campbell's Hero Quest, and a lot of different things. And one of the devices that he used with R2 and 3PO was he used basically two characters that are kind of minor characters to tell the story through.
Yeah.
And
it was really more their story dealing with humans than the humans dealing with
right.
these
Or at least that's what
yeah.
you think it's going to be.
Exactly. Yeah. So I see what you're saying there. Yeah. You know, to me though, I really keyed in on Luke. I mean, the character of just this. I don't know. To me, it always felt like he knew he was destined for more, but he's like he couldn't see. You know what it says. You know, always your mind on the future, never here in the present, and everything. And it just was like something to me was like that was something that was for me as well as even as a kid. I was like, you know, what am I gonna do in the future? It's always I wasn't ever really in the present other than for this movie, of course. So I really keyed in on Luke. I love the character of Han. I never really saw myself as a Han character either. So I don't know. I just, and I guess really when it comes down to it as well, Vader was my very first villain that I would say of anything.
Terrified.
Terrified. I mean, man. Nothing is, hearing that sound before he even rounds a corner. I mean, that's worse than the. Well, I mean, that was his, or the ball up from Jaws. I mean, you think of a villain. I mean. Mm-hmm. His respirator was probably his iconic sound that struck fear into people before he would show up on scene.
Well, and you can even, I mean, all you have to do is make that sound.
Oh, yeah.
And in a dark room, you can make that sound. Everybody in the world will probably know what that is and what you're aping.
Exactly.
But to go back real quick to the characters, and I guess we'll give it back to the moderator. One of the things that's true. One of the things that makes Star Wars work so well. And is because the characters are so iconically drawn and constructed. Mm-hmm. 3PO and R2 are 3PO is the frustrated guy that doesn't really want to go on this trip.
Right.
R2 is the spunky little dude that's like he's the plucky comic relief.
Yes.
Luke is the wistful guy that everybody can see themselves. Everybody thinks, man,
aren't I destined for more?
Destined for more? Everybody can relate to having had to do chores and
think he's whiny.
And he was. But I was going to a Tosche station to pick up some power converters.
But you do it after your chores are done.
Yeah, and but everybody can relate to that. Everybody can relate to wanting to go do something with your friends, and your parents won't let you because you got chores to do.
Right.
And then you go to.
Han
Solo.
Leia.
Oh, I hadn't forgotten about him. But then you meet Han Solo, who's the sort of too cool for school guy that everybody knew, like the senior. You're a freshman, he's a senior.
But you're forgetting you saw Princess Leia first. Princess Leia was the very first character before we saw Darth, before we saw the
droids,
the droids,
right.
But Princess Leia was the very first character that we saw with her little buns in her ear, over her ears, and you're thinking to yourself, well, who is this princess, or who is this that is asking for Obi-Wan,
right?
And sending the droids into the escape pod to get them off this ship.
Yep.
And
one of the first things she does in the ship is shoot a guy.
Right.
She takes out that stormtrooper.
She takes the stormtrooper out. So I guess I'm going to jump the shark here.
No, you're not jumping the shark.
No one's jumping the shark.
No. Later.
No, I knew he was going to do it.
So, Princess Leia is who I always generated to. Not because she was helpless, because she was this strong, independent. She was a teenager, and she is like
fighting stormtroopers
and getting the word out that she needs help.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't even know why she needs help.
Right.
Because we have yet to be introduced to Darth Vader, or we just see these stormtroopers trying to stop her from doing whatever she's doing. And and then that's when we meet Luke, and then and it progresses, and then we meet Han, and we're in the cantina and we're meeting Han for the first time, and it's
the truck stop from hell.
Yeah, and killing poor Guido. It just
poor Guido.
I don't care. Han shot first.
That's right.
Yes, he did.
That's right.
So Stephanie, that was kind of where I was going to lead into. You know, for them, as young, what, 7 or 8 year old boys, you know, how did you think it was different for us seeing it as young girls?
As young girls, yeah.
Because Princess Leia was a character that is iconic, but she's also, I feel like, one of the first female characters that I was inspired by, because she was amongst all of these men and boys, and she's jumping out there taking charge.
Yeah.
And she's right in the middle of all of it. And so I think she was always one of my favorite characters. Darth is obviously, he speaks to me.
Imagine that.
But, you know, there might be a little dark side that comes in every now and then.
Interject, I agree. I mean, one of the strong things about the Princess Leia character was the fact that here's all these strong masculine men trying to do their part, and who do they answer to? Princess Leia. So I mean, what kind of better role model for women coming up than this princess that is more of a fighter rebel than being a princess. I mean, especially when they take her out Alderaan and she literally isn't a princess anymore because her planet's been destroyed. So it was a strong female character.
One of the things that Carrie Fisher always made fun of, but as a little kid, I thought, wow, man, she ain't afraid of nothing. Was she hated that line. Carrie Fisher, the actress, hated that line to Governor Tarkin. I recognized your foul stench the moment I was brought on board. She said, I used to look at George Lucas and go, you can write this, but you can't say it. You know, but you know, she hated that line because she's like, nobody talks like this. But I'm like, but I'm sitting there 7, 8 years old going, man, she ain't afraid of nothing. She ain't afraid of nothing.
Darth Vader, you know, you know, and how, you know, they, being 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, you're thinking when they go in to interrogate her and they bring out that droid that's going to use the syringe on her, she's not afraid of that at all. She's just looking at them like, do your worst, and she didn't give it up. Right. She did not give up. You know, we talk about these strong female characters now, but she was the first. I mean, she did not give anything up. She did not give up her rebel base. She didn't, and even when they told her, well, we'll destroy Alderaan. Well, she gave up a base. Well, guess what? The base had been abandoned. Yep. You know, and so she never lost her identity of who she was and what
was at stake.
Yeah, what it was at stake, because she knew what was at stake.
I mean, it's always you know, pretty impressive when a princess can, you know, trick somebody into information that they think is true, and you know, turns out it's not. You know, if anyone's seen those past podcasts, you know, we'll know what we're talking about here.
It was a long time ago.
The galaxy a long time ago.
Happened right in this room.
That's right. This room right here.
My greatest moment happened right here.
Are we talking about a movie?
We are.
Okay,
that inspired so much more.
Moving along. So, does everybody have a favorite scene or a favorite moment from this movie that resonates with you more than maybe others?
Ooh, man.
Okay.
That is if anyone's got one, I mean, I've got a couple.
It's changed over the years.
Right.
When I was a kid, it was the dogfight at the end.
Oh,
I mean, it's Star Wars. This is so this is Star Wars, you know.
Yep.
Then as I got a little bit older, you know, it moved from the dogfight scene to the scene where they've escaped from the Death Star and they've got to go to the cannons. Because you know, Star Wars was the movie that developed my love for cinema music.
Right.
And I beg anyone to show me a scene that the music and the editing and the scene were not made for each other than the music that goes with that. But now, here I am, almost pushing 50 years old. It's Luke looking out that double sunset. I mean, just, you know, what's the rest of my life going to be?
Right.
You know, that's it for me.
So you know, I kind of, you know, I don't think I've ever thought about that question. You know, when you ask that, the first thing that popped in my head is probably the scene where he comes back and he sees Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru char his body over that. That was, I mean, 7, 8 years old. I was like, wow, that's pretty a graphic scene, I would think.
Especially for George Lucas.
Oh yeah. So I mean, the sheer horror of coming upon seeing his parents murdered that way, you know, was pretty affecting. But yeah, you know, I would say, the dogfight. I expect, probably the one that really kind of got my heart jumping the most is though seeing the Millennium Falcon coming down from the star, and you see that glistening of it, and it's like, here he is, to give Luke his chance to fire the shot. Yeah. That was probably one of the high points of the movie for me. That I was just like, woo, yeah. So that's when that battle really kind of went to that next level for me. So,
Gal, do you have a scene that sticks out for you?
Actually, I've got two. The first time that Luke met Obi-Wan, figured out who Obi-Wan was. Mm-hmm. When Princess Leia sent that out and she was asking for Obi-Wan Kenobi, no one knew who he was because he was in hiding. And so when he finally did meet up with Ben, and he was like, Ben, she's asking for Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he was like, oh, I haven't gone by that name in a really long time. Yeah. It was like, it kind of, and he started foreshadowing of, I knew who your father was, and the Force is with us all. And he started training Luke at that point. So that was one that sticks out in my mind. And then the other one is when, you kind of learn a little bit more about who Han Solo is. We saw him in the cantina, but then when we're in the ship and we're like, they're hiding underneath the floor, being smuggled in, and it's like, oh yeah, okay, so he truly is a smuggler. He, his ship is made to do more than what, so those two are the ones that stick out in my mind.
Oh. Okay. What about you, Queen?
This one, as we've watched them again more recently, this one turns out not to be my favorite, and I have found that all of my favorite scenes tend to come up later, and because I watched these when I was so young, I feel like they all blend together for me too. But my favorite one in this one is when Obi-Wan is like, these aren't the droids you're looking for. I'm like, oh, how did he do that? I'm intrigued. I need to know more about the Force.
Because we may be grown and have staff meetings one day.
You
will work overtime.
But
we don't want to talk about that.
That's, we're going to move on to the next subject. Yeah. But there are lots of scenes in the movie, but that one just sticks out to me. Like, every time it happens, I get, like, a little happy, giddy feeling, like, these aren't the droids you're looking for. Mm-hmm. So...
Imagine you getting giddy over mind control. I get it.
Again, you can see why I tend to lean maybe towards the dark side. I get to use a lot more of the cool stuff.
Hashtag she's not wrong.
That's true.
Okay, so if we're talking about favorites, is there anything about this movie in particular that you don't like? Or what about when they went back and remastered and added some new... they updated with some new CGI. How do we feel about?
Well, if I can tackle this just for a second, I'm kind of a Star Wars special edition apologist. They don't bother me that much. The only thing that bothers me is they can't seem to decide what order Greedo shot, because if you watch the original special edition, Greedo clearly shot first and missed Han. Then I believe when they moved it to DVD, they shortened up the interval a little bit.
It's almost like they shot at the same time.
Well, still a little bit before Han.
Right.
And then on the Blu-ray, they tweaked it again. Well, we just watched it on Disney Plus, getting ready for this, and it's simultaneous. It's like they tweaked it again because they did know that was something that, to me, that is the biggest mistake they made with the special editions, because it seriously changes the character of Han Solo.
Oh, yeah.
That was a character moment to shoot. So that, and to me, it changes his arc all the way through the films, because to me, in the movies in their original form, he went from a guy who would essentially, shoot you under the table, to a guy who is worried about his friends and is in love with the princess,
and he actually comes to love the cause of the rebellion. Yes. So seeing that journey from one character. Yeah, I'm sorry
it's exactly right.
It was just seeing that kind of that progression of a character. I guess also kind of what I like about it in the sense is that that's what's cool about a role-playing game, is that you get to see your character as it began and see where it goes to and develop into something new. And I think he is probably one of the, until they tweaked a few scenes, was probably one of the best developed characters. But I mean, going back and tweaking it again in a sense that it taking that edge of that character off, it kind of lessens my like of that character. I really love the harshness and the coldness of Han Solo when we first met him and where he ends up.
Yeah, and see, like, one of the other things that they gave grief to was putting the Jabba scene back in. I didn't have a problem with that because Lucas shot that. It was intended to be part of the movie, and he was going to mat the slug in later, and they just ran out of time, ran out of money. He decided, okay, I can cut this scene out. It won't affect the movie, so that didn't bother me. That's, like I said, my only issue with the special editions is the Greedo thing. So that's for me. Anybody?
Torgo, you got anything?
Well, I was going to say, I kind of like the, adding Jabba back in. Seeing them, trying to ambush them before they could leave the Teshy Station, to hit Mos Eisley. Hunters. He had sent his bounty hunters out to find Han because he owed him that money because he got boarded. And we actually got to see more of the bounty hunters because it shows that, the Hutts controlled that. And Boba Fett was part of that.
And it relates later into Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not just there's Jabba. There's Jabba again.
Yeah. It's not a one-off. It's not just like, So I guess I'm a little bit more towards the Star Wars purist in the sense that there's not a lot of the CGI stuff they add back in that I like. Okay. It's not so much that I dislike it. I could live without it. To me, I didn't think it really added any value to any of that. I mean, I understand like where they added more people like in the market to make it seem fuller, which I can understand why that was done because I mean, from my understanding, what Mos Eisley was this huge spaceport, and I mean that's like where the scum and villainy would congregate, and so of course this place should be packed and brim with anything and everything going on. And seeing remembering what we got initially, and then seeing the edit where they add just more character stuff into it. To me, after rewatching it again here recently, it just seems like they add a little bit too much of the CGI in to kind of add some comic relief. Yeah, and I didn't think it needed it. It didn't warrant it. I mean, so like where the speeder bike is coming through Mos Eisley and it scares the one and makes the Jawa swing off and everything. I'm like, what was that really needed for? I didn't need a laugh moment there. There was just, to me, I guess that's what really hits me is that to me it seems like they tried to add some comedy, some laugh elements to this. And what I remember initially seeing it was more of a serious film, which is what I really truly loved about it.
Well, and the one thing I thought that was not added to at the time, especially in light of the prequels that he was prepping at the time in the special, it's like I kept expecting them to do something with the Vader Obi-Wan fight. Oh yeah, but they didn't. I mean, fans have done something with it later.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you remember the fan edit they've come out with. Oh my God, if you have not seen it, we're going to take it.
Probably
we're going to put it in there, and we'll show it here just in a few moments.
Yeah.
Our long-awaited meeting has come at last. The circle is now complete. When I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
Only a master of evil, God.
your powers a weak old man.
You can't win, Darth. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Then I will show you the true nature of the Force.
There she is.
C-3PO, do you copy?
Yes, sir.
Are you safe?
For the moment.
We're in the main hangar across from the ship.
Nice, come on.
It's them. Blast them. Get back! Where are you going? Get back!
Certainly has courage.
Good will it do us if he gets himself killed. Come on.
There is no escape.
Didn't we just leave this party? What kept you?
We ran into some old friends.
Is the ship all right? Seems okay if we can get to it. Just hope the old man got the tractor beam out of commission. Now's our chance. Go.
Come on, R2. We're going.
Ben?
Now you will die.
Run, go, run!
Kenobi.
Okay, so there you go.
Yeah.
Man,
See, now that's kind of what I was expecting.
Oh man, that was badass. I mean, I know
That's what I was expecting.
Alec Guinness. I know maybe wasn't in the physical peakness to be able to perform that, but we all know from camera shots and stuff like that. I'm not even talking about CGI and face overlay. I mean, we could have had some stunt doubles and we could have got a lot better.
But like, you know, I enjoy being like when the X-wing's pulling, you see the pilot's heads moving. I enjoy that kind of stuff. It did bother me. Like I said, the Han thing, and I do agree with you on the comedy.
Yeah, it was too much. But I mean, and I guess really, if I have to throw a positive note, I really like the fact that they, when by going back and remastering it, or you know, and all that, they cleaned up the squaring around all the TIE fighters.
There was a lot of matte lines.
A lot of matte lines there that you know, seeing in the movie, especially when you're 7, 8 years old, that what's a matte line? I don't care. But you know,
you're not critiquing that part
exactly.
of it.
Yeah, no.
But seeing it cleaned up just added a little set of realism to it even more for me.
You're just fighting the arrows not to climb behind the seat every time Darth Vader comes around the corner.
Exactly.
Yeah. So did Queen? Did you ever see the original unaltered versions?
I'm sure I did.
I wouldn't be surprised if her mom still didn't have them.
We probably still have them on VHS.
Oh, okay. Because those are collector's items now.
She probably has multiple copies, but they're probably not in mint condition.
I understand.
Because they got heavy rotation through the VCR.
Was there ever a time that she yelled from the room, "Come change the tape"?
Not that I recall, but our house wasn't very big, so we were probably all in the same room. I could have just leaned over and popped the next one in. So one thing, I don't want to get us too far off topic, but obviously we reviewed episodes 1, 2, and 3. We're moving on to 4, 5, and 6, but we have Rogue One that squeaks in there. How did you all feel about how Rogue One tied into the beginning of this movie? I'm placing it in the right spot, correct?
Yes, it's actually right. I mean, literally, Rogue One ends right as we feed into episode 4.
I feel like some of us have strong feelings about some of the newer movies. So this one was one that I really enjoyed, but it played into, I loved how it picked up. It ended where this one began, and that to me was genius.
I loved Rogue One. Now the first third is a little rough for me. It's I feel like we've got too much editing going on, too much jumping around. But once we get all the players together, all the characters together, I said players because basically it's a gamer movie. But once you get all the characters on the table and the mission starts proper, not only is it an awesome movie, it gives us the best Darth Vader scene we never even knew we wanted.
Oh yeah. I agree. I mean, Rogue One. I understand what you're saying there, but what I liked, especially about Rogue One, it was supposed to be a standalone movie. And to my knowledge, I know that we're looking at possibly getting a with this character.
Cassian Andor.
Yes, we're supposed to be getting a series about that character and everything. So I understand why the beginning was kind of, can we just get on with it and stuff? But they weren't planning a 3-movie trilogy to be able to build these characters up. They wanted to tell the story, which that was genius and great. And I'd almost want to see kind of something similar with the way they got the new Death Star plans for the Bothan story. I mean,
starring Manny Bothans.
Oh, Manny, he's a card.
Manny.
Had to see him go.
When Manny Bothans died, you bring us these plans.
And if you didn't get that joke, I'm sorry.
You didn't get that joke. Why are you watching this? Why are you watching this podcast?
Exactly. So anyway, so I mean, that's I enjoyed Rogue One a lot, and it was a great story. The CGI of Princess Leia, it could have been a little better, but I actually went back and read articles, and apparently, because Mark Tarkin looked phenomenal.
Yes, he did.
But I hear when it comes to CGI, actually older characters are easier to do because they can give them the wrinkles and stuff that gives them more of a realness. But someone who's young and usually kind of smooth skin and everything, there's no way to make that not look real.
Okay, but it's like taking a selfie and using one of those filters that makes your face look it's too smooth. There's no imperfections, and I think that's what happened with.
She had a Kardashian filter going on the whole time at the end of that one. So.
I think she was way past the Kardashians.
But anyway, no, I mean, that was a great story, and I love the way it ended, especially by the fact that none of our heroes lived.
Yes.
That was bold. I mean, it's like, yeah, we're killing them all, and I'm like, oh crap.
Well, and what I also enjoyed was they went back into the Lucasfilm vault and found alternate takes of the pilots going Red 11 standing by. It's like, so it's the same guys that are in the Death Star charging at different angles, so it doesn't look like they just took that from the trench run. No, it's alternate takes that were not used in Star Wars.
That was genius.
Yeah,
genius.
Very, very, very genius. And on the CGI characters, I thought both Moff Tarkin and Leia looked good until they opened their mouth. That's my own little sort of uncanny valley thing. There's something about CGI characters that if the mouth is just a little off, it throws me out of the way.
Superman. Henry Cavill's mouth is just wrong.
The stash.
The stash. It would have grown back. Just shave it off.
Yeah. Apparently you can.
That's Superman. We have a little scruff. I don't know. something else. But.
I mean, if we got to go off a little topic, they should have really just kept Superman in the black costume and let him grow his beard out. But that's not what we're here to talk about.
This is not a Snyder Cut podcast.
Exactly. So anyway, but yes, Rogue One was definitely a thumbs up for me.
Yes, me too.
So, we've worked on New Hope. Are we ready to move on to the next chapter, or do you guys feel? Is there anything else about A New Hope that we want to discuss before we move on to episode 5?
I just have one thing to say, and that is people don't realize what a perfect film A New Hope is. There's very few perfect screenplays out there, and even fewer perfect screenplays are perfectly executed. I mean, the three that come to mind are The Godfather, the original Back to the Future, and A New Hope, or Star Wars as it was called. And, because we all kind of talked about the different characters and different scenes, but when you think about those scenes or those characters, there is about 4 different things going on in each scene. You've got the introduction of Darth Vader, okay, but you've established the Empire, just like that. You see Princess Leia, and you see that she's no slouch when she takes out a stormtrooper, but then she's putting these plans in R2. And then you go to Luke, and you get down on Tatooine, you understand he's a teenager that's wanting this, and he wants to go to the Space Academy, and he's looking out, he's on a planet with 2 suns. Okay, we're really out there. You meet Han Solo, he's a pilot, but he's also a smuggler. He's also got a price on his head, and
he's in trouble. He needs a job,
right? And it's just, every scene has about 4 different things going on. That it doesn't matter that we've dropped you into this universe and not explained anything.
Right.
Even when they're running from the Star Destroyers, flying through hyperspace ain't like Dustin Crop's boy. He throws out the rules of hyperspace just like that as a line of dialogue, and it's just to me it should be a case study in how to write a script.
Oh, I agree.
Because there's so many things.
Well, and also, and I would say even the thing I liked, another thing I really liked about it is the whole Mos Eisley scene is the fact that we get to see so many various races that we don't even need to know. We don't even have to have a story about them. Like, oh man, look at that.
Yeah.
You see these races.
The galaxy got really big.
It really expanded the galaxy, and it's like, there's no way that race and that race come from the same planet, or you see that kind of stuff, and it really somehow just makes the galaxy seem so much bigger just by adding a bar scene.
Yeah.
I mean, in its base form, all we're seeing is a huge bar scene. So, I would say, so I agree with you. I mean, if anyone ever wants to write a movie script, a story, you couldn't go wrong by at least examining Star Wars: A New Hope.
Turnabout, any final thoughts as we close out this chapter?
We got, like we were saying, we got introduced to Chewbacca and just all the different, the aliens, and we're not alone. That's, as humans, being on Earth, we think everybody looks like us, and in our way of thinking, Martians are these little green men, and George Lucas opened our eyes to a bigger universe of truly what could be out there, and that's something, I know we had Star Trek and it did that, but Lucas brought it to a bigger scale than I think Star Trek did.
Well, yeah, because in most movies, Chewbacca would be either a monster or a pet.
Right.
Yeah, no, he
would. Yeah, they're always. That's a good point. And a lot of the characters or creatures that we saw in Star Wars were supposed to just be individuals. That's why I think the bar scene was so powerful. These people they were patrons. They weren't someone's pet. They weren't. And the fact that they're like, we don't serve their kind here to the droids. Right. It's like, wow, okay, so we still got racism in
the guy
the galaxy.
The guy that's got slime coming out of his entrails, he's okay, but get your droids out of here.
We don't serve their kind. So, I mean, so I agree. I mean, it just adds so much more volume to the movie and how big the galaxy could truly be. And I think they did it so much better than what Star Trek did, just because of the fact that, you're right, anything in Star Trek, if it didn't look like a human of some sort, or humanoid, it was... it was a monster, it was a creature, it was something to be dealt with and taken care of. So,
okay, well, I think that is going to wrap up our review of A New Hope. Stay tuned, because we have lots of opinions about the rest of this particular trilogy. So we will see you soon with The Empire Strikes Back.